There we go. Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to ask another question on those lines, Brian. Is there any chance of, I can already see the PowerPoint, is there any chance of sharing that at some point later down the track? Or
yeah, that's fine. I've stripped it right back. I'm conscious of time. I don't want to dwell on this too much. So if you need any more info, whatever, just sing out. But I think this is the most basic sort of introduction to this complicated fishery I can give you. So anyway, before we start, just so you guys know who we are at Austral Fisheries, you may not have heard of us before. We're a wild seafood producer, one of the largest in Australia, probably most famous for Patagonian toothfish, which is this ugly dark fish here on the left of your screen. We catch that in the sub-Antarctic Ocean in very deep water. I don't know if anyone's ever tried it before, but it's a very, very unique fish, fetches a very high price. There's nothing quite like it out there, so we're very proud of it. We do prawns, obviously, that's why you're here. That's what I'm involved in. We also have Australia's largest goldband snapper quotas, which we catch in the Northern Territory with fish traps. And we're involved in various different seafood trading. So basically, if there's seafood that we can get our hands on, it's sustainable and we can make some money forwarding on selling it, we'll do it.
Brian, it's a stupid, silly question, but does the Patagonian toothfish fetch a high price in one particular for one market, or?
No, it's premium fish, fetches a high price in China, America, Australia, pretty much high-end restaurant markets. So very rich, oily fish. You don't really need to eat a lot of it to feel quite satisfied. So it's a cool fish. I'll have to hook you up, Chris. And feel free, look, if you have questions, just butt in. That's fine. I'm cool with that. And Northern Prawn Fishery. So we've got 11 prawn trawlers. If there's one thing you should know, it's that 11 prawn trawlers keep you very, very busy. So
I'm just going to mute Kate. Sorry. Go on.
No, that's all right. I couldn't tell if she was asking something. Full engineering team in charge of maintenance and repairs. We've got a fleet team who's everything fishing. That's what I'm involved in. We've got 88 crew members here at sea. That's the photo there on your right. They're from all different parts of Australia and the world. Very vibrant bunch of people. Some of the greatest people we ever meet. We love them, and we can't really do what we do without them. So that's Austral. Northern Prawn Fishery. It's Australia's largest, most valuable prawn fishery. It covers a huge area. You can see there all the way from the tip of Cape York in Queensland through to the Kimberleys in Western Australia. So 6,000 kilometres of coastline. There's 52 boats fishing in that area. To give you an idea, there used to be over 300 in the 80s. So we've had several restructures. We've got the number down to 52. It's in a pretty happy space. Catch per unit effort is at a good spot, so it's profitable and it's good for the fishery. There's a lot less fishing pressure. We produce between 4,000 and 8,500 tonne a year. That's very variable. It depends on weather. To give you an idea, the demand for prawns in Australia is around 15,000 tonne. So the take-home message is there's not enough prawns in the wild capture fisheries in Australia for Australians. It's why we have aquaculture and why we import we do import quite a few prawns to make up that number. And we have 2 seasons. So we fish our fishery, we fish for banana prawns, which is just finished up. And we've got tiger prawns coming in August. So 2 very, very different fisheries, different species, which I can explain to you later. Any questions on that so far? We're good. Okay, we're good. So I'll quickly just touch on sustainability because this ties in a fair bit with your syllabus, I believe. But it's a very sustainably driven fishery. Obviously, we want to be able to keep doing what we do forever, but The important thing for us is to make sure that consumers are happy with what we're doing. So pretty much everything is driven towards that side of the argument. If we don't have people that agree with what we're doing, they're not going to buy our products. So one of the ways we do this is with the Marine Stewardship Council, which you may have heard of. So that's that blue tick, that logo at the top right of the screen. That's like the global standard for wild capture fisheries. Basically, despite what Seaspiracy says, if you've got that label, you are sustainable. And it's a lot of hard work to get that label. And just because you got it doesn't mean you get to keep it. You're constantly getting challenged and audited. So yeah, it definitely helps consumers make the right choice.
Bryan, sorry, Jolene here. If our prawn production is a third to a half of what Australia demands, is there any moves, or can Australia do anything about getting MSC certified to the Asian, like getting their quality up?
Not really. We can source MSC from elsewhere, but the problem with MSC is we can't give money to other countries or other fisheries to bring their product to this standard. They've got to do it from the industry, so it costs a lot of money.
So it's customer demand. Customer would make them change their ways, maybe.
Possibly. It's why the seafood's so cheap, Jolene. That's
Yeah,
one of
I
the.
know.
So basically, there's a lot of high-end markets that will say no because they aren't MSC, and then the next best option is, well, this is the cost. Who else wants it? But for a lot of those countries, it's almost impossible. They just don't have the backing to get this standard. It's a big worldwide issue in the globe at the moment, unfortunately. We're really lucky in Australia because we can get on top of this.
Okay, no worries.
So we've got limited seasons. We do spatial area management. I'm not going to dwell too much on that. Basically, we close any areas that are sensitive or struggling, nurseries, stuff like that. We do a lot of ecosystem-based management. So you probably would have heard maximum economic yields. I've seen that pop up your syllabus. I deal with a lot of scientists, some of the best scientists in fisheries in Australia, and they all love maximum economic yield. It's really a fantastic concept that really, really helps fisheries all around here. So
Do you want to explain why it says that it's better than maximum sustainable yield?
Sure. Okay, so, and it can get quite complicated. I've definitely walked out of some meeting scratching my head trying to figure out what's going on, but the basic concept behind maximum economic yield is it takes on fuel price, the price of the product, pretty much all the economical inputs, as well as the biology of the species. So maximum sustainable yield is the most that you can take out in order to continue to be sustainable. So theoretically, you can take the same amount each time, every year, and do it forever. The trouble with that is that's not always, or very rarely, that's what's in the best interest of the commercial side of fishing. So what MEY does, I'll explain it this way. So if there's 100 fish, let's say your maximum sustainable yield is 100 fish, and you take your boat out and you go out there and you catch 40 fish in your first trip. It's really easy. You come back, you unload, you fuel up again, you go back out, you've got 60 fish left. And let's say the next trip you get 20 fish. They're harder to find. You come back, you sell them, you fuel up, you go back out, then you catch 10 fish because it's harder to find. See where I'm going with this? So you end up with, you still got 30 fish left in your maximum sustainable yield, but they're getting harder to find, and you might be breaking even at that point. So it might be better for you to cut your lot, or to stop fishing completely, walk away with your profits, rather than trying to keep catching your yield and end up financially hurting yourself. So 3 main concepts for maximum economic yield. Number 1, it's better for the species. So it's always going to be better for the target species. There'll be more of them left, even more than MSY. Number 2, it's better economically for the fishing business. So you make more money. The third one that doesn't really get mentioned a lot if you set your target for maximum economic yield, you essentially lift the bar quite high. So you might not necessarily meet that, but as long as you're above MSY, you're still sustainable. So if you set your MSY as the target, there's every chance you might fall under that, or fall short. That's probably this, yeah. Can I explain
How many operators would operate towards the MEY versus MSY then?
In Australia, we're lucky. Commonwealth Fisheries really push MEY. It's almost a standard. So that's a lot of the big fisheries. MSC is based on MSY. You don't need MEY to get the blue tick, which is fine. It's still sustainable. I would say that most fisheries around here would aim for MEY. Definitely.
At the same time, it's still only one component of ecosystem-based management. So they still have to take into account stock assessments and the ecological risk assessment.
Absolutely, yeah.
Anyway,
it's very dynamic, complicated, yeah, but that's one part of it.
Yeah.
Just fortunately, it benefits both sides of that story.
Is there anywhere that actually mandates that people have to fish to MEY or not?
Good question. I only get really exposure to the NPF. Unfortunately, I'm interested. I do look at other fisheries. I can't really comment. I want to say yes, but I don't think so. I think definitely MSY, but I think everyone strives for maximum economic yield, but for whatever reason, you might not get there all the time.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, mate.
No worries. Bycatch, that's a big thing for our fishery. I can show you some footage in a second. Banana prawns, I'll just fly through this for you. I don't know how we're going for time or how long you normally go, but I know you guys have got your real lives to attend to and whatnot, so I don't want to lecture the lecturers. But banana prawns, this is probably the most exciting prawn species you can catch in the history of prawn species. They do something that a lot of prawn species don't do. They actually group together in schools, and these schools can range from anywhere between 500 kilos to 100 tons. So we're talking mass amounts of prawns concentrated. And what they do is, as they flick up off the bottom, they stir up the mud, the sediment, and that rises all the way to the surface to the point where you can see prawn marks from Google Earth, like that image is taken. That's 2 prawn marks with 3 boats, which you can just see working. And basically what that means is you can we use spotter planes to locate prawn marks. We put boats onto patches of prawns. They catch them in fairly big numbers during the day, and no bycatch because it's really targeted. So this is predominantly the prawn that you'll find at supermarkets, and Australians love them because high volume and reasonable prices. So,
do they school in the same size? Like, so if you're going to catch the whole school, is it a particular size, or is it just from largest mother ones down to smaller ones that are still developing?
good question. We find that majority of the time they're all one size, same age, same size. It makes it quite easy because the crew don't have to grade them. They can go almost in the same box, so same size.
But yes, so you're taking the same age group out each time, type thing.
Yeah, keep in mind that these prawns, banana prawns are almost a 12-month species, so they're very young. They're within 6 months they're ready to harvest. So.
Okay.
Tiger prawns are a little bit different. They unfortunately, they don't school like banana prawns. They spread quite evenly along the bottom. They tend to form little clusters, little groups, but nothing like the banana prawns. Prefer sort of muddy substrates around shoals, areas with current that can bring food to them. So a good night's fishing, banana prawns, a good day's fishing might be about 10 tons. So that's a lot of prawn. In tigers, a good night would be 500 kilos. So these are beautiful prawns. They fetch quite a high price. they go to export markets. So there's not a lot gets to Australia. And the issue with tiger prawn fishing is a general trawl. So you're fishing at night time, most of the night in long lines. So bycatch is an issue with this fishery. It's been the focus for probably the last 21 years. So that's, and with bycatch, threatened, endangered or protected are the priority. So these are the TEP species. So these sort of get identified by the EPBC Act. We have to act on it by law. So we have to collect data. We've got to find ways to reduce catches and do our part. And the best thing that's been developed in this fisheries by far would be the turtle excluder device, which I don't know if you know what that is, but you might have learned it's like a steel grid that deflects anything coming through the net out a trap door. And in the past, it was not uncommon for boats to pull up, turtles, stingrays, sharks up into the trays and then have to get rid of them. Be crew hazard. They would squash prawns. It was really messy. These days, it's kind of boring for a deckhand out there. They may go for 4 months straight without even seeing any of those animals in those large sizes. So virtually gone 100% on those sort of animals. They work really well. I do have a video here on the slide taken by GoPro. This is a large honeycomb stingray, about 2 meters wide. You can see how this device works. We'll play. So short video, very, very quick interaction. So that's facing forward. You saw it came back and escaped. So lots and lots of footage and studies being done in recent years. Very, very positive on that front.
Bryan, can I just ask, with the TEDs obviously have been successful with a lot of those, larger species. What are some of the other things that you've been able, like that your research has shown? What are some of the other mitigation techniques, like different fishing times, different or more? Is it more just about making sure that you're targeting particular seagrass beds? Like how does that? What are some of the other ones?
Okay, good question. In terms of TEPs, there's kind of two parts to that question. There's what are we doing about everything else, which I'll get to the next slide, and whether we do sort of spatial management. To tell you the truth, we don't. We only trawl soft, muddy bottoms, so there's no seagrass or anything like that we're trawling through. We do have move-on rules, so if we catch a high proportion, or the only thing that we sometimes see out of those species at the bottom is the sawfishes, and that's because of their spiky rostrum. They do sometimes get hooked up in the gear, and then they get shaken out and released. So we have move-on rules. If we see, because they're highly endangered, or one of the species of the 4 species is, if we come across a few of those or report a couple, we'll have a move-on rule where we move to a different area. But I've only seen that happen once in 5 years, so it's very, very uncommon.
Yep.
But yeah, turtles, TEDs have been really successful for the big stuff. The little stuff, the little stuff's been a challenge. It's been a challenge forever. This is the stuff that mingles with all the other prawns that you're trying to catch. They're the same size as your target species. So any device or hole you put in the net essentially may result in lost catch. So that's been one of the reasons why this has been very, very difficult. We've had recent breakthroughs in this in the past 2-3 years. I actually designed one device here on Microsoft Paint and put it together. I got a Boilermaker to weld it up, took it out there, and that became legislated and the whole fishery used it. It actually worked really well. But since then, there's been further developments, and we're at the point now where, sorry, it's the next slide, these devices here on the bottom. We're at the point now where we're quite happy with them. They've scientifically proven to reduce bycatch by over 30% quite regularly with no prawn loss. And the way these things work is it essentially creates a low pressure zone in the net where all tied fish, their natural instinct would be to go and swim into the area with the lowest water flow, which is what this is creating. And right there at that spot, we've got an escape opening. So in the early days of trialing this, a couple of years ago, I went out there and I put GoPros in the nets and had a look at fish behaviour and how they were interacting with this device. I lost quite a few GoPros doing this. So don't tell my boss. But, this is some footage here that I managed to grab. Did that work? I can't tell if it's
Yeah, that's great.
Cool. Yeah. So
You're not down in the net just throwing them out the hole, are you?
no, I'm not. No, not quite. I've got hours of this footage. Like it, honestly, you can look at it for literally days straight. Fortunately, that's not my job. I hand that to the scientists, which is good. So yeah, that's all I really put together for you guys, because I know it was rushed, but that's the introduction to sort of the NPF. It is a very complicated fishery and there's a lot that goes on, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah. Do you know
What's
if
going
there's
on with that
any?
haircut?
Sorry, did Chris just go? Or did I do?
Mine was a stupid question, Jolene. I just said, what's going on with that haircut? That's my question.
Okay, so my in the US, in the I don't know what they call in the Gulf of Mexico, that prawn trawling industry there, they were looking at working with some restaurants to change their menu basically every day depending on what bycatch was brought in. Is there any, if you know that there is a common species that's always caught with the prawns, could that be looked at? Because there seemed to be a higher, chance that the bycatch will die or be easily eaten afterwards anyway, if that bycatch could be used in restaurants or something.
Yeah. It's a good question, Jolene. We have looked at that quite regularly. Unfortunately, a lot of our bycatch is very low value species.
Okay.
We've looked at aquaculture feeds. So a lot of this bycatch could be turned into feeds. The problem is that freezer space is very valuable on these boats. And if you're going to put something that's worth 25 cents a kilo versus something that's $50 a kilo, it's but you can rest easy knowing that we do conduct ecological risk assessments on every species we interact with. That's the law. That's part of ecosystem-based management. So I think we interact with over 300 species in this fishery. That's 300 species that we've assessed and looked at the reproduction biology, the lifespan, to make sure that we're not overfishing or going to impact that species. So, but it's a good question. We have had that quite a lot.
Okay, cool.
What is your biggest bycatch up there?
Like in terms of volume?
Yeah, just in the smaller stuff.
It depends on where you are in the fishery. So in the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf, which is sort of west of Darwin, you get what we call lizard fish or grinners, which surprisingly actually fetch money in the UK as fish and chips, but we haven't managed to find a market here. But they can be, I mean, you can get shots of, over a ton, just that fish mixed in with your prawns.
You need to sell them in Perth then. There's a whole lot of pommies over there.
Yeah, we may have to. And then the other ones that we see a lot of would be probably what we call a dollar fish, which is just a really highly productive, short-lived species, a bait fish that's really I don't know what its purpose is in life. I think to feed other fish, but that's it. But those devices work really well on both those species. So essentially, nearly halved them.
It's awesome.
Yep, no, it's been good.
Your day to day, Brian. What's your day to day look like, mate?
My day to day, depending on what time of year it is, it might be what have I done recently? Today we met with Santos, big oil and gas company, about seismic activity in our fishery. Other days, I'd love to show you my Google Calendar. I've got lots of that on there. Yeah, it depends. Lots of things. It's very diverse. There's a bit of manual labour in there as well when I get bored in the office.
Do you have much to do with the Indigenous?
Yeah, we do. Not me personally. We have industry representatives that work very closely with all the Indigenous communities around Northern Australia. We regularly meet with them to discuss any concerns, but our fishery is very separated. We don't, these boats don't come into shore at all. They're 6 months of the year. They're only on the ocean. We have very little interactions. It's mainly just respecting any lands if we come in for a breakdown or stuff like that, and to stay clear of any culturally significant areas. But yeah, that's about it really.
In terms of your quotas, mate, each year are they quotas in the prawn fishery at all?
Good question, Brad. MPF is very unique. There's no quotas. It's one of the few fisheries in Australia or in the world where there is no quota set. So we're free to catch as much as we can in our time frame. And the main reason for that is they are very fast living and highly reproductive organisms. 300 boats in the 80s fishing all year round. But if anything was going to overfish prawns, it would have been then. So they're very robust. It's one thing we don't tend to have to worry about.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There's a large, I think the government is investing huge money into Queensland in general, but I noticed lately Mackay too, as in particular, like Tassal have put a lot of money into a prawn fishery on land. Is Austral getting in on that, putting some land-based prawn aquaculture in place?
No, we're not. We're a wild seafood company, so we're fishing. Aquacultures we do compete with. Both have their place, I believe, but it's just in this company's interests aren't really there for land-based aquaculture.
And probably my last one is, on a job scale, do you have a lot of people coming in with the relevant qualifications, or what can teachers do to guide students in that direction, both aquatic practices type students and marine type students?
Yep, good question. Most fisheries do struggle with retaining crew. There's definitely been a history or a stigma where you get, I don't know, where it's like if you can't find anything else, you'll go fishing, and you might have issues, whether there'd be alcohol, drugs, stuff like that. But I can assure you that I work on it every day. It's not like that. That group of people I showed you, they make good livings. They have houses. They have families. They work 6 months a year, and have 6 months off. But I'm probably doing something wrong, and they're doing something right. But yeah, in terms of qualifications, we do still struggle with engineers, particularly. So the engineers can make really a good income. They'll earn over $100,000 easily for 6 months' work. They need skills, obviously. So we tend to try and look for people with trades, people with marine engine driving tickets. So that's a good career pathway for guys that don't necessarily want to go down an academic pathway.
Yeah, the aquatic practices guys. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, no, there's plenty of jobs in fisheries. Honestly, it's a good place to work. It's if they like fishing and like the ocean, this is unreal.
How long do the trawlers go out at a time?
That's the part that drives people away, because the longest stint is 4 months. So 4 months without going to land, away from your families. You got to make sure the culture is really nice on the boat. So you're with your friends and you're basically your family on the boat. But if you don't get along with those people, or you don't like being separated from your families at home, that can be a very long 4 months.
Yep. Okay.
And just one more, mate. The 2 seasons you have, are they biology based? Are they government based seasons? Those dates?
Those days are very much based on biology. Yep. So the banana prawns particularly is what governs. You can catch tiger prawns nearly all year round, but the banana prawns, they come on directly after the wet season. So that's kind of the start date. The big rule for any fishery is don't catch them in peak spawning. So that comes into play. So when we're not there, they're either spawning or they're recovering or getting ready to spawn.
Yep. Sweet.
Any more questions?
Probably the most talking I've done in a long time.
That's been awesome, mate. That was really, really good.
Cool.
Informative, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate your time.
Thank you, Bryan, for making time. You sound like you're very busy, so we really do appreciate it. And thank you for putting together that PowerPoint.
Not a problem, guys. Thanks for having me. It's good. I love what you guys do. When I first read that syllabus Nicole showed me, I thought, far out. That is a big ask. You know, this is uni lecturer stuff. And at first I thought, there's no way you can teach this to young kids. And then I remembered that you guys are the professionals, and that this is your job. And teaching's not about what you know. It's about learning and understanding and communicating, and you'll smash it. It'll be easy. Like biology.
We just, it's do until it's pretend until you get there, really.
Yeah, that's my day to day.
I might stop recording, and if you just